Hello and welcome to Algebra Unit 2, Concept 5, Lesson 3. Today's objective is that scholars will compare average rate of change between different functions. Please remember that you should be completing your notes as we go. Make sure that you are completing your notes as we go. So the first question is, what is an interval? So an interval is a section of a graph determined by the input. Remember, input is your x value. So, for example, the interval 1, 5 would be the section of the graph between the input values of 1 and 5. So that would be between here and here. Well, I got a little bit better with getting those on there. So right there, between those two intervals. So why do we care about that specific interval? We use them to find what's called the average rate of change. So with linear functions, you had your rate of change. Because it's a line, the rate of change was constant. But when we have nonlinear functions, we look for the average rate of change. The average rate of change is the change over a specified interval. We take it by comparing the start and the end points. So let's look at the average rate of change of this graph over the interval 1, 5. So I'm looking at the point down here where my x value is 1 and the point here where my x value is 5. So those points are 1, -1, and 5, 2.5. And I'm just going to use my slope formula, change in y over change in x. So change in y is 2.5 minus -1 over 5 minus 1, which gives me 3.5 over 4. Remember that we don't like leaving decimals in our fractions, so I'm just going to change that to 7 over 8 as my average rate of change between 1 and 5 is 7 over 8. Okay? Look at what we're going to use this for. Let's use this to compare these two. So we're looking at the rate of change between, once again, 0 and 5. So on this first graph, my point is 0 and 2. And then my point here at 5 is 5, 11. So I'm going to use change in y over change in x. So I have 11 minus 2 over 5 minus 0. So that gives me 9 over 5, which I can leave that way, or I can write as 1.8. And then over on this other graph, my point is 0, 1. And then at 5, it is 5, 8. So once again, 8 minus 1 over 5 minus 0 gives me 7/5, or 1.4. So this one has the greater average rate of change between these two. So let's look at two more. Once again, I'm comparing it between 0 and 5. That's important that you look at it. So here the point is 0, 3. Here the point is 5, 6. Once again, 6 minus 3 over 5 minus 0 gives me 3 over 5, otherwise known as 0.6 for the one on the left. And over here I have 0, 1, and 5, 8. So I have 8 minus 1 over 5 minus 0 gives me 7 over 5, which is 1.4. So this one has the greater rate of change between these two. Let's look at just a couple more situations. Here, who has the greater rate of change? Well, again, it's going to depend where we're looking at. I didn't give you an interval, so let's try the interval -5, 0 as my interval. So I'm looking at the point from here to here. So on this graph, I have -5, -4, and 0, 1. On this one, I have negative. I have -5.5 and 0, 1. So here I get 0.5 over 5, which is 0.0. Sorry, it's just 0.1. And over here, I end up with 5 over 5, which is 1. So obviously this one has the greater rate of change. But if I looked at a different spot, it could be different. So let's look at them. What if we're given the situation as a word problem? So we're given a situation. So my bacteria sample began with 100 cells and can be modeled with this function. F of x equals 100 times 1.25 to the x power. X is the time in hours, and f of x is the number of bacteria. Okay. What is the average rate of change over the first 7 hours? So in this case, I'm going to put the numbers in. So I'm going to go from the beginning, hour 0, to hour 7. So if I put in 0 into my thing, my points are 0, 100, and 7. And I'm just going to put this into my calculator. 100 times 1.25 raised to the 7th power. And I get 476.84. So once again, change in y. So that gives me 376.84 over change in x gives me 7. And when I divide it, I get 68.12 is my average rate of change. And that is bacteria per hour. Okay, good luck with this work and let me know if you have any questions.